So yeah, Purim Star was very relevant on in Sivan as well. That's when the house of Haman came tumbling down. That's right. It was after the climax. We're already after the climax was the attack. Now we're mopping up. We're mopping up.
The process of,
Yep. The erosion should help. It should be a complete annihilation of the Soine Yisrael. Okay, so we are up to Omer Lechendri. Now this is actually a very interesting halacha. The reason why it's an interesting halacha is because the Mishnah started off by saying the Elu Nishboim v'Noitlim. The following are those who swear to take. And in the last case, we were discussing a case where the question is where the payers were. So the question was, is it really a case of Nishboim v'Noitlim or not? What was the case? The case was, I took the payers. You claim I haven't paid yet. So I swear, and then I get to keep the payers. So that's not really Nishboim v'Noitlim. I was really holding on to the payers, right? The Buddha came along and said that if I'm holding on to the payers, then it's Yad Di Al Helyoina, because normally the merchant wouldn't give me the payers unless they were paid for. But that's not really a true example of Nishboim v'Noitlim. So let's have a look at, and there's actually a discussion in the Rishonim. Tosfos actually has a different pshat in what was going on there to make it into a case of Nishboim v'Noitlim. This case is a pure case of Nishboim v'Noitlim. And what did he say? I'm sorry. I think I'm jumping ahead of myself. Right, so we are talking about the case of 10 libidin payers. So 10 libidin payers, what was the case? It doesn't seem to be consistent with the theme of the rest of the Mishnah, because the case was that I'm holding on to the payers, and the Baal Abayis or the Baal Chemveni says, "Okay, pay me my dinner," and I say, "I paid you already," right? And you put it into your cash register. So that is not really an exact case of Nishboim v'Noitlim. He gave me the payers already, so it's not Nishboim v'Noitlim. I already have them, right? So that's why it touches as parallel. But Tosfos actually learns it's a little bit of a different case. The case is now where I'm holding them already. The case is where they're still on the table. They're still on the table. They're not in your shus. They're not in my shus. They're in no man's land, and that's what I'm swearing for. So that would actually be an example of Nishboim v'Noitlim. He says it was on the floor outside. Yeah, it was not. You're right. It was not inside the chanus. So that would be a case of Nishboim v'Noitlim. So let's see what the Gemara says. Tanya Amar Rabbi Yehuda. We have a brayso that elaborates on what Rabbi Yehuda said. Eimosai. When do we say that there's a controversy over here? Now Rabbi Yehuda says, when are you chachamim right in saying that the shavua is necessary to be made by the purchaser? When the pairs are piled up in no man's land, and they're both fighting for it. There's no muksuk. That's where I agree with you. It would have to be a shvua. But if the purchaser has already taken possession of these goods and they're in his hands, in his knapsack, then that's where I would disagree with you, and I would say that okay, gewaltig. Omar l'shulchani. So that is the way Rashi learned. The way Tosfos learned that the place where they argue is when it's tzavur and munachin, and that even that's what Rabbi Yehuda says that I don't have to swear. He's saying that even the chacham will be moeded to me in the case of a motzei mechaber el varach.
How is this storekeeper ever supposed to? That's the worry. Like if he gives him something, that he can claim that he paid him. He doesn't have a problem. He shouldn't pay him. Well, how do you do it?
So the way it works is you pay first. You know, remember in the catalog stores? Remember consumers distributing how it used to work? You just pick what you wanted, you go pay, and then it would come down the conveyor belt. Of course, if I was giving you credit, there's something called hakafa. If you had a credit account by me, yeah, I would give it to you first. But if you're paying cash, you're a cash paying customer, you have to pay first. Like when you buy gas, you got to pay first. right? Omer l'shulchani tainli. So we had two cases in the Mishnah which were virtually the same. One was the Chavani giving pairs, and one was with the Shulchani giving me change for money. But it's really the same thing. So frankly, more it's stricha. Why would you need both these cases? They're really two versions of the same case. So I'll tell you why I need them. The Yashmina and Hakam Isa. If we would have only had the Chavani and the pairs, then maybe there Bahach Ka'ami Rabban. Really, Rabbi Huda's right. Really, Rabbi Huda's right. If I'm holding on to the pairs, how much of Mechaber Elavaraya? So why would the Chachamim argue? The Teretz is because maybe Davka in the case of Paris, do the Rabbanan argue on Rabbi Huda? You know why? Because normally we say that the fact that you released the Paris is an indication in and of itself that you must have been paid. But that's not true by Paris. Because what would be if I had Paris that were going bad as a homeowner, as a merchant, as a chemedy, and I want to unload it. I want to hasten the deal where somebody will take those pairs because I have to unload them before they go bad. So maybe where do the Rabbanan say that it might be reasonable to suspect that the Chemvani released the pairs before he got paid? Mishum de peri avidi de merkabi, they'll go bad. So if it's going bad, he'll push it out. He'll give it to the homeowner to make a kinyan on, so that the sale will become irrevocable as quickly as possible. They give the merkabi le. There he might have given the pairs before the money, and therefore we could demand a shavua of the purchaser. But if he's a shulchani and he's just swapping money, never is there a crisis to unload your money because of another money, because your money doesn't go bad, unless of course it's the Iranian rupee. What's it called? I don't even know what it's called. Aval mois, Deloy Merkabi mois doesn't go bad. Ema moy delay Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe the Chachamim would agree to Rabbi Yehuda that the shulchani in the bank, if you want to switch in $100 bill for 520s, they are not going to give you the 520s and then ask you for the 100. They're going to get your $100 first. But if we only had the machlokes when it came to money, then I would say Baha Kama Rabbi Yehuda. Only there does Rabbi Yehuda hold that the Balabais doesn't swear because surely he must have paid already before he received his goods. Abu Baha by payers, Rabbanan for the same svara as before, it is because the merchant wants to push the payers out the door before they go bad. That's why the Mishnah gave both cases, so we shouldn't mistakenly think that the halachas and the machlokes, the shita side of Rabbi Yehuda and side of Tanakama, we shouldn't mistakenly think that they don't apply to both cases. Rather, it's crystal clear that it applies to both cases. Okay, gewaltig. So it says, a woman has admitted that her ksuba has been partially paid. There, in order for her to collect the rest of her ksuba, she has to swear. And so too, when you collect from nichse yisraimim, or when you collect, they have to swear. So we already know the maskana of this Gemara because we already had it 2 days ago. But the Gemara before said v'havinamba. The Gemara right away asks, what does it mean Yisraimim in order for them to be able to collect? They need to swear. Miman, who are these Yisraimim collecting from that the Mishnah says they have to swear? Ilema miloiva. If you're going to tell me that if they want to collect from the loiva of their father, they would have to swear. Well, that's not fair because normally you protect the Yisraimim. You don't put additional restrictions upon them. And Avu and Shokal B'loishvua, their father would be able to collect from the loiva without any shvuah at all, merely by presenting his star. And you're going to put a restriction on the Yisraimim and make it even more difficult for them to collect than it was for the father? That doesn't make sense. So let me tell you what the Mishnah really means. It means just like the Malva himself, if the loiva had died, the Malva would only be able to collect from the Yisraimim by swearing that he had not received full payment, and therefore he still owed the full amount. So too, even if it's the Yisraimim that are collecting, they also have to make that same shvuah, Shavuos HaYarshim, that as far as they know, this star has not yet been paid back. Based on this, Rabbi Shmuel Damar Tavayu, Rabbi Shmuel will say a very interesting halach. This only applies. The Yisraimim only can collect from other Yisraimim. So the Yasmei Malva can only collect from the Yasmei Aloiva in the following case. El Shemeis Malva B'chaya Loiva. The Malva died in the life of the Loiva. So when the Malva died, the Malva owned an unrestricted star that he could collect from the loiva without any type of shvua. That's what he was moirish to his children. So now the Yasmei Malva have an unrestricted star that they can collect from the loiva without any shvua. And then after that, while they were owners of the choy, while the Yosayim of the Malva were the owners of the choy, then the loiva died. Now the Yosayim of the Malva have to deal with the Yosayim of the loiva. So there was an additional restriction put upon them, is that you need to swear that you, as far as you know, this loan wasn't paid back. But if it was the other way around, so the moment the loiva dies and the malva is still alive, then there's a restriction placed upon the malva, and the malva is told that he cannot collect with this star unless he swears to the Yisraelim that his father, their father never paid back. So that means the quality of the ownership of this loan that the malva had degraded, because kfar nischayev malva lebnei loiva shua. Now this loan is not an unrestricted loan that you can collect with a star. Now it's a loan that requires the support of a shavua to be able to collect with. The ein adam moirish shavua levana. And anything you own that you need to swear in order to be able to collect, you cannot be moirish that to your children. So we should not make a mistake and think this is a hilchos Yerusha, that somehow I don't own it enough to be moirish. Rashi says it's a very practical reason. And Zot Rashi, nischayev loiva, nischayev malva shua, shelo yiskabel klum, that he had not yet been paid from the deceased loiva. Shanifer b'nei asoyim afilu b'shtar. If you're collecting from Yisraelim, even if you have a star, Torah Shua, you have to swear your father did not pay me back. If somebody owns money, for instance, he owns a liability, he owns a choiv, but the choiv can only be collected with a shvua, such a choiv would not get passed on to his children when he dies. And now we have the reason, the very practical reason. It's impossible for the Yasmei Hamalva to swear the same shvua that their father would swear, that we're 100% sure that this loan was never paid back. So because of that technicality, since the Malva owns the Khoiv, but it's with a restriction that he has to swear that he hasn't been paid back, and the children of the Malva cannot make that shvua. They can make a shvua to the best of their knowledge. It wasn't paid back. But that's not good enough, because the shvua that's required of the Malva right now is that he's 1,000% sure that it wasn't paid back. They're unable to make that shvua, therefore they can't collect. But if they yash an unrestricted chayv, because the Malva died before the loiva, then when the loiva dies, so we put a restriction on the children of the Malva, but we only ask them to swear that they don't know anything about a repayment. But we never put that restriction on the Yisoimim of the Malva that they are for sure that it was not paid back. Very simple. So at the end of the day, Rav and Shmuel hold that ein adam moirish shvua levanov. If the loiva dies first and then the Malva dies, the children of the Malva cannot collect at all. They lose everything. Right, and if you remember yesterday, the Gemara used Rav this Shita to prove that Rav and Shmuel holds that Chazra Shvua L'Sinai. If the Shvua can't be made, or they're abundant, the Bezdin pull back, and they don't rule on this, and then you don't have to pay back. Right? We used it to shtel tzuak, a case where the Loiva couldn't swear because he was Pasal L'Shvua, and the Malva couldn't swear because he was Pasal L'Shvua. Based on this, what we just learned now, Rav and Shmuel held that Bezdin pull out, and the Malva cannot collect from the loiva, right? They were the Rabbanon of Bavel. Shalchu kamed Rabbi Lozer. So they sent to Rabbi Lozer because their question was they didn't want to pass like Rav and Shmuel. They said Shavua Zu Mativa. What was the question that they were asking? They were saying that surely you have to be able to undo Rav and Shmuel, because we need to allow these things to collect. Just because the loiva died first, then the Malva died, so now the Malva's children can't collect. There has to be a way to collect. So Mativa Rashi, Mativa lafkoinim. Just because of that chi of Shvua, now we're going to make the children of the Malva lose the right to collect the choiv that's rightfully theirs. That's not fair. Looking into the base over here, Mativa lafkoinim. Okay. So zogt Rashi weiter. Im ein Yecholim l'shava oisha shvua mamish. They can't swear. They can't swear the exact shvua that their father would have had to swear was that I'm sure it was not payback. At least let them swear Yeshava shvuas yorshin. Good shvuas like pagdanu abba the noitlin. So they asked Rabbi Elazar, do we really have to comply with Rav and Shmuel? Why won't we just say they can make the shvuas a yorshin? They should be able to collect. So you know what Rabbi Elazar answered back. Shalach lu yorshin nishboyin shvuas yorshin v'noitlin. Rabbi Elazar says we do not pass like Rav and Shmuel. And of course, even the children of the Malva, even if the loiva died first, the children of the Malva will be able to collect. So we have a machlekes between Rav and Shmuel and Rabbi Elazar, whether or not if the loiva died first and then the Malva died, would the children of the Malva be able to collect from the children of the loiva? Shalchu b'mirabami. Then later they sent a couple of times. They asked Rabami the same question. Omar Rabami says, well, "What do you want from me? You keep on asking me the same question over and over again. If I would have an answer, I would give you the answer. I obviously haven't found any new information, so don't harass me. I heard you the first time, and if I found some type of raya, some type of insight, some type of information that would enlighten us, of course I would have shared it with you. So you don't need to ask me 100 times. But since you sent me this shaila once again, I'm not going to not answer anything. I'm going to share with you another interesting halacha, although it doesn't answer your question. Since you're here, name about milsa. I'm going to say an interesting chiddush in relationship to this shaila, and that is as follows: where did Rav and Shmuel say their halacha that ein adam meir Shmuel abanav? If the loiva died first and then the malva, the loiva will not be able. The malva won't be able. The malva's children will not be able to collect. That's amad bedin umeis. That's if the malva has already taken the bnei haloiva to din Torah to collect, and Bezdin paskin that he needs to swear, but he didn't swear yet. So there, Rav and Shmuel said, "Kvar nischayiv malva libnei loiva shvua," because once Bezdin paskined upon him that he has to make a shvua, now his loan became degraded, and therefore, if he dies, his children won't be able to collect from the bnei loiva. They know the mer shvua. But loyamad bedin, even though the loiva died, but he didn't yet take the Yisraelim, the estate, to Bezdin to collect, and then umeis, there Yarshim Nishboin Shavuos Yarshim Noitlin, because there we don't say it's called Eino Demar Shvua, since the Bezdin didn't tell him to swear yet, we'll consider it unrestricted funds. Mask of law Rab Nachman. Correct, Rab Nachman, this doesn't make sense. Hamad Bedin is not relevant to this question. Because Atu Beidina Kamachayve Shvua, are the Bezdin fabricating a new Chi of Shvua? Chazal already made this din Shvua with or without Bezdin. At the moment that the loiva passed away, Ichayv lei malva lebnei loiva shvua. You know, when you ask the Rav if this is kosher or not, if he tells you the wrong psak, that doesn't make it kosher. He's just relating information. If he makes a mistake, he makes a mistake. It's the same thing over here. The chiyuv shvua doesn't get fabricated by Bezdin. They're just pasking the halach, but the chiyuv shvua is there from before, so it doesn't make a difference if the father of the Malva was in court, was not in court. The moment the loiva dies, this loan becomes degraded because in order to collect, there has to be a shvuah made. If you hold like Rav and Shmuel, that ain't the Morish Shvuah Banov, Isa, then you hold it whether or not there was a Hamad Bedin. There's a Chiyav Shvuah on this loan the moment the loiva dies. And he less. What do you see from Rav Nachman? He said, if you hold like Rav and Shmuel, you hold like them, and if you don't hold, you don't hold like them. Well, Alma Misavkale. So it's quite clear that Rav Nachman wasn't sure should he paskin like Rav and Shmuel or not. Frank the Gemara was Rav Nachman unsure. V'yomer Rabbi Yosef bar ben Yumi Avad Rav Nachman uvda yachloiku. So how could you say that Rav Nachman paskined like the Tana Reb Meir, upon whom Rav and Shmuel explained that there's no collection done by Bezdin at all? There was another Tana in the Mishnah. The other Tana in the Mishnah was Rabbi Yossi, who said Yachloiku in such a case. So, you see clearly that Rav Nachman doesn't paskin like Rav and Shmuel. He doesn't even paskin like the Tana that Rav and Shmuel said they're halachim. Zokt Gemara in Chanami, Lidvar of Reb Meir Amar V'Leiloi Sfirli. All he's saying is, if you pass like Reb Meir, then it's a subject if you pass like Rav and Shmuel or not. But I don't even pass like Reb Meir, so this whole shaila is not relevant to me because I always pass Yachloiku. Now it's important to note. Rashi says that this Yachloiku only applies in the case of the Mishnah where the loiva and the malva were both not trustworthy. No one says Yachloiku in this case where the Yarshim can't collect. So let's have a look at Rashi, where Rashi, I believe, says a beferish. Im Isa lidarav Shmuel de another mer Shmuel abanav Isa bein amad b'din lein shlevin Yachloiku gabishneim chashudin the dami laha sheinechad mehen yachal yishava alma lesa laha derav Shmuel alibi der meir communion the ill the amar chazu Shmuel mkaima Rav Nachman abed Reb Yosy. So he passed to Reb Yosy that it would be Yachloiku. So he says Yachloiku over here, but he doesn't say Yachloiku over here. Okay, Zok to more weiter. Zok to more weiter. Master Reb Oishi. Now Reb Oishi is going to ask a kasha. Now we have the shaila of Rav and Shmuel. Can a debt that is restricted, that in order to collect, the malva has to swear, can that be passed on to the malva's children? Right? That is the discussion. So Master Reb Oishi. Mesa, what happens, if a man dies? Now, the man dies, the estate now owes the ksuba money to the almana, right? Now, what happens if she didn't take the ksuba money? She didn't demand it yet. So the halach is, and then she dies. So Yersha maskirin es ksubasa. Her children, if she died after her husband, so when she died, she was the malva, right? When she died, she was a malva dying, but the loiva was dead already. The loiva is her husband, so it's exactly a case where the loiva died first and then the malva died. Yeah, it's a regular law. It's a regular milva b'shtar. So the halach is meisa yershel maskirinis ksubasa. Her yarshim could demand her ksuba ad eshim v'chamishan for 25 years. If for 25 years they don't make a demand, we say that they were mochel. But I'll call upon them. You see that you can collect a chayv, even though at the time of the death of the malva would have had to make a shvua. So Zok Rashi, what is this 25 years? Mishameis Baila. Vim Amru Chafei Shanim. Vim Amru Chafei Shanim. If 25 years passed, V'loy Tavu, and she didn't ask for a ksuba hefsidua. Why is that? Because the halacha is Vim Loy Tava. Rashi says Machlasa. It's a siman that she was moichelet. Why is 25 years the number where we say she was Michael? I don't know. I guess Bezin understands the psychology of people. After 25 years, now there's actually a very big side. Let's say someone owes me $100,000, and in my mind I'm Michael, but I don't speak out those words. I am Michael. Is the chayv mochel or not? So there are those who bring a raya from here that mechila works even in your mind without even articulating it and formalizing it. Because here she didn't say anything. All she did was she didn't make a demand. So there's a very big shaila, lalacha, if mechila works, if it was not articulated. And they bring a raya from this case here that you see a mechila is considered a mechila without it being articulated. Okay, I'll call upon him. So we seem to have a raya that a malva, even though the loan that he wants to collect is with restrictions, he can still pass it on to his children. So you know what the case was? The case was she was collecting. She was already in collections. She was collecting it from the estate, and Bezdin made her swear, and she swore she never received payment for it, and then she died. So now she could be Merishit. You know why? Because after she swears, now no shvua is required anymore. That she could be Merishit now. Tashma. Let's try another kasha. The Gemara tries 3 kashas. Tashma. Nasa Rishona Umesa. What happened is he married a woman, and he had children with that woman, and then she died. So now these children are Yisoimim of the mother, but they still have a father, right? Then Nasa Shnia. Then the husband remarried to a second woman, Umeis who, and now the father died. They had children too. So there's 2 sets of children. They both share a father, but only one of these children are children of a new mother. That's right. Now,
And it was,
but when the father died, now there's a new liability that's put upon the estate to pay up her ksuba, right? Now let's think about this for a second. Umesu, so the halacha is Shnia, the second wife, can collect ksuba from the estate. So before the estate will be split up amongst all the sons of the deceased, she has a right to collect her ksuba first, right? I'm sorry? So a man had children from a previous marriage. He married again, and then he had children without marriage. So there's two sets of children that he has. And then he dies. So now his wife, his almana, is going to collect from the estate. His Rizov died before him, so there was never a liability there. But the liability is the second wife, because since he died, now his estate has a liability to pay her ksuba, right? So she can collect ksuba from the estate. That's pretty good. But what if she then dies? And now her Yosy have to collect from the estate, right? The problem is when she died, she was mechuyev shvuah. Before she died, she was mechuyev shvuah because her husband, the loiva, died. Right? Anytime a woman who's an almana is collecting ksuba, the loiva died. So how could you be marshal? But look what it says in the Brisa. Shnia v'yarsha koydmin liyarsha rishayna. According to Rav and Shmuel, the yarsha don't get collected at all. Zaktimur, I could say the same teretz here. It's speaking that the second wife was alive when her husband died. She made a shvuah, and then she died. So therefore, her children can collect the ksuba. Tashmat, let's try another right. Abul Yershav Mashbin Oisa Ves Yershel Ves Abar B'Shusa. The Mishnah is discussing the following case. Normally, a husband, let's say he divorces his wife, he could demand a shavua from her that she was not paid yet, right? To collect the ksuba. What if he tells his wife, when they make their original ksuba, I will never demand any shavua of you, nor of your children, nor of anybody. If there's a claim that I owe ksuba, I will pay it without any hassle. So that's another, he's not allowed to do that. So therefore, he's not allowed to now demand a shavua for her. So therefore, in such a scenario, if he died, the children would not have to swear because that commitment is not only to her, but it's to her children as well, right? But what happened now is, what if he dies? So his children never made such a commitment. He made that commitment, never to demand the shavua of this almana or any of her children. But his children don't have that commitment. So Zok the Mishnah of Yarshav, the children of the husband, Mashbin Oisa, if she wants to collect from the estate, her husband dies, the children could make her swear. The Es Yarsha, and can also make her children swear. That's Abon B'Shusa, and anyone coming in her place to collect the ksuba. So now you have a huge kasha. Mashbin Oisa, we understand. She owns a choiv, and she'll swear to them, big deal. But if she dies, how do her children get the choiv? Vibalt, her husband died. Now she's subject to swearing to the children. And when she dies, her children can't make that shavua. So how could she collect? Amar Shemaya, you're 100% right. Litzadin katani. If you look at this brisa, you have to break it up. Oisa, what does it mean? Yarsha mashbin oisa. That's if she's an almana. If she's an almana, the yarshim could make her swear to them that she hasn't collected. Her yarsha could only swear if she's a gerusha. So what happened was he divorced her. When he divorced her, she had a right to collect without a shvuah. If she died, they also have a right to collect from the husband without a shvuah, because the husband's commitment was he wouldn't make her swear nor her children swear. So what it means, so now that the husband dies, they already had the shvuah full force. So that's why they could keep it and swear to the yarshim. So that's three kashas on Rav and Shmuel that the Gemara successfully deflected, and now we have a fourth kasha. Matzav Rav Nosson bar Hoshia, Yafa koyach haben mikoyach ha'av. In this particular case, the ben has a stronger case than the father. Why is that? Turning on Talmud base. Shaben goive ben b'shvua ben shaloi b'shvua. The son could be goive, say if he makes a shvua that he didn't receive or he's not aware that his father received any payment for this loan, but ben shaloi b'shvua. If the son could bring Adam that the father, at the time of his death, said in front of two Edom, I never received payment for this star, like a certification of that star, the son can collect. But the father can only collect from Yisrael if he makes a shvuah. The father can't declare that this was never paid, but the children can collect if the father made such a declaration. So you see that the children of the Malva have a stronger koyach to collect a loan that was outstanding by their father than their father himself, because they have a way to collect even without making a shvuah if they had edim that the father said this star was never paid. So let's drill down into the details of this case. Hey, Chedami, the meis loive b'chayim malva. It must be a case where the loive died b'chayim malva, because we're comparing his ability to collect in the same scenario as we're comparing his children's ability to collect. When does he have to collect b'shavua? That's only if the loive died. So if the loive died, he collects only with a shvuah, and if he dies, his children can collect even without a shvuah. But that doesn't make sense, because if it's meis loive b'chayim malva, and under the same circumstance, the Brisa says the katani sheben goyve ben b'shvuah ben shaloi b'shvuah. What is b'shvuah? Obviously, it means shvuas yorshim, where he's the name malva swear. We're not aware that any repayment was made, and shaloi b'shvuah is Reb Shimon Gamliel, who in the Mishnah told us that if Edom heard the father state before he died that this chayv is left unpaid, they could collect based on that. So now it's very strong in Rav and Shmuel. This seems to be a Meforshah Brisa that contradicts Rav and Shmuel, and that says you could collect. Rav Yosef, you're right, because this agrees with the whole premise of Rav and Shmuel. Hamani Beis Shammai. Rav and Shmuel only said their halacha according to Beis Hillel, and that's what we're talking about. This Brisa Shaloi halacha is according to Beis Shammai. Who's Beis Shammai? The Armei Shtara Oimid Ligvois Kagavidomi. Beis Shammai says that anytime you have a milva b'shtar, you don't look at it like it's not collected. You look at it like it's pre-collected. So therefore, there's no such thing as I can't be moirish this to my children. It's mine. Where is it relevant? It's relevant in the case of a soita. What happens if there's a soita, she has to drink, and before she had a chance to drink, her husband dies? Now the question is, can she collect her ksuba or not? You might say, since she's a safek, she shouldn't be able to collect the ksuba from her husband's children, because you haven't proven that I'm a soita, right? But she has to prove that she's not a soita, right? Because she's collecting. If she's collecting, she has to prove she's not a soita. Zok Beishami, she could collect. You know why? We don't look at her as the Moitzim Mechaveri. We look at the Yisoimim as the Moitzim Mechaveri. Because if she's holding on to a Shtar Ksuba, that's as if the loan is already in her hand. So once you look at it that way, then you don't say by the Yarshim they can't be Yarshim the Shvul Abanov. Because if I'm being Moirish, a Shibud, we look at it like it's in the hands of the children, like it was in the hands of their father, and therefore the Shavuot is just a technicality. If they can't make the shvuah, they still get to collect. Okay, so that is the situation. It's unresolved. Do we pass like Rav and Shmuel or not? Rab Nachman l'Surah. Rab Nachman arrived in Surah, and of course, everyone came to greet him. Oy l'gabei Rab Chisda v'Rabba bar Rav Huna. Rab Chisda and Rabba bar Rav Huna came to greet him, and they had a shayla. Amar lei leisi mar na'akar laha d'Rav and Shmuel. They told Rab Nachman once and for all, you have to declare that we don't paskin like Rav and Shmuel. Because Rav and Shmuel, there's a lot of catches on Rav and Shmuel, and it's a very sure zach that now the Yisraelim shouldn't be able to collect just because the Levi died first. We have to formally come out and uproot the halacha of Rav and Shmuel. Amalahu, Rav Nachman says, what do you want from me? Ich believe asoy kalhani parsi lameker lahad Rav and Shmuel. What do you think I traveled so far to come here just to be able to uproot Rav and Shmuel? No way, I'm not uprooting Rav and Shmuel. So Zok to Gemara. I'm not uprooting Rav and Shmuel. So Zok to Gemara, Ella, Havu de loy seif Allah. Rav and Shmuel expressed their halacha in a very specific case. Where first the loiva died, there was a law. Then the loiva died. And after the loiva, the malva died. There, Rav and Shmuel said, "Ein adam morish shvul." That's the only case where we're going to accept Rav and Shmuel's halacha, because that's where they said it. But any similar case to the case of Rav and Shmuel, we will not apply that halacha. Because since they said it there, we can't undo what they said there. If a Zorvite will say that will only apply their psak to the exact case that they said it. So let's have a look. Havu de lois of Allah. Prepare yourself. Don't compare similar cases to the case in Rav and Shmuel and paskin like Rav and Shmuel in those similar cases as well. Rather, Heimam Ruah b'Shavua haboli par b'nichse yisoymim she'enoi moirish oisalavan. It makes leva b'chayim malva. That was the case that they were referring to. Therefore, al tilmudu mimena hamuchiv shvua acheres. Don't apply Rav and Shmuel's reasoning to any other case. Where might you apply it where Rav Nachman was saying don't apply it? Kagoyin might. The Amar Papa. Hapoigim story. What if I tell the loiva, you know what? This star that says you owe me 100,000, I will agree you already paid me back 25,000. Now I have a chiv shavua that you didn't pay the rest, right? Umeis. And now the malva died. So the malva died in a scenario where he was muchiv to make a shvua, right? The halach is yorshin nishboyin shvus yorshin v'noitin. So there we wouldn't apply Rav and Shmuel's halacha, even though you might claim it's the same thing. It's a chayv that needs a shvua, but since he only said it where the loiva died first, that's where we will apply Rav and Shmuel's halacha, not in this case. Beautiful. Now the Gemara probes different cases that are somewhat similar, and the Gemara wants to know, is this a place where we should apply Rav and Shmuel, or is it not? So who does shachif? Someone died, v'shavak arva, and he left over an orev. So now who am I collecting from? Who is the malva collecting from? He's collecting from the orev, and then the malva died. So now the children of the malva are trying to collect from the orev. So do you say the same thing? So for a couple of meimar, honami, the loy loisav alahu. This is not exact same case as the case that Rav and Shmuel is referencing, and therefore let's say that the Yisoimim of the malva shall be able to collect from the orev. Amalei Rav B'Shua, Papa, no. Atu arva lav boso yasma also. What's going to happen after the Yisoimim of the malva collect from the orev? He's going to turn around and collect from the estate. So basically, that's the same thing. There we will have to apply Rav and Shmuel's halacha. We will not let the B'nai Malva collect. How about another case? Who does shachiv v'shaval acha? He didn't leave over any sons, so instead of the loiva leaving over children, he left over a brother. Again, sober Rabbi B'Chamal Meimer Hanami the loy loisuf alahu. Here, the children of the Malva, if the Malva died, then they should be able to collect from the brother, who is the next of kin to the loiva. Amalei Rava mali shaloi pekteni abba mali shaloi pekteni achi. Therefore, there's no difference if it's a father or if it's a brother. Either way, you cannot collect, and you do apply Rav and Shmuel's halacha. Okay, Gavalti. Amar Rab Chama. Hashto the loy itma hilchos loy karav Shmuel v'loy karav Elazar. We have a machlokes, right? And then but Aleph Elazar says we don't pass like Rav and Shmuel, but there is a Rav and Shmuel. What do we do? So Hai Dayana, the Avid Karav and Shmuel avad, the Avid Karav Elazar avad. Either way you paskin is acceptable. It's an acceptable psak. Omar Papa, high star they asked me. If you have a star of Yisraelim, so it's a star that's under dispute. According to Rav and Shmuel, they cannot collect. But according to Rabbi Elazar, they could collect. What do you do with the star? Lo mikra krina, you don't tear it because it's a good star according to Rabbi Elazar. But you can't collect because it's not a good star according to Rav and Shmuel. Who Dayana? There was a dying, the Avad Krab Eliezer. He passed like Eliezer. He collected. Have a tumor abundant b'masei. There was a big Talmud Chacham in the city. Amalei told him, "You can't pass like Krab Eliezer. I see na igerta mimarava the less hilchos of Krab Eliezer. I can bring you a letter from my Rava that the Talmid Chacham there said that we don't pass like Krab Eliezer. You cannot collect." Amalei, this dying was not intimidated. He said, "Oh yeah, Lechitaisi, show me the letter and then we'll talk." Also, they went to Rab Chama. Amalei, Hai Dayana, the Ovid, Krab Elazar Avad. He passed like Krab Elazar, and we already said that being that this machlokes was unresolved, it's fully acceptable for a dain to pass like Krab Elazar. The Elu Nishboin. The next case of the Mishnah was another case of Nishboin, even without a taina. Remember, we said Shutvim who split up. I can demand a general shua from you that you didn't take advantage. So, but the Lashon Mishnah is they swear without a claim. Velachem Shugana is going to offer up a shvua if nobody asked him to. Frankly, more Otu B'Shuvtini Askinan. Are we speaking about idiots that they're going to be forthcoming with a shvua if it's not even asked from them? Zogt Gemara Hachi Ka'amar. Ve'elu Nishboin Shaloi B'Tainas Bori. The following people will swear there's a claim against them, but it's not a claim of bori to Tanya Shema. So Shutvim can't say, I know for a fact you stole that money. He's Shema. Is it possible you stole money? I want you to swear that you did it. Who are those people? Shutvim and Arisin, they have to swear, even though there's no Tanya bori. Tana, Ben Bayis Shamru. It says in the Mishnah, a Ben Bayis. What does Ben Bayis mean? Anyone who's draying around the house? No. That's not enough to be able to be mashbiah somebody. Rather, it's someone who is in charge of the affairs of the home, and he could spend money and give out purchase orders. That's the person who needs to swear. He can hire and fire. He can buy and sell. He's my financial agent. That's the person that we're referring to. Why is it that these three people, Shutfim, Arisim, and Bnei Bayis, why do they swear? Why do we demand a shvu of them, even though there's no direct claim? They're in a position where, yeah, I took a kickback. I worked so hard. You know what I do for this company? So the guy gave me a little bonus. Why should I declare that, right? It's very easy for someone to justify that. I once was approached by somebody who works for a moisid in this city, and he wanted a kickback from me. I priced a job for this moisid, and he said, add an extra $2,000 to the job and give it to me. So I told him, why are you doing this? He said, because I work very hard and no one appreciates my work. I said, so I have a great idea. Go to your boss and explain to him that you're entitled and do it fair and square. Why would you steal from the moisid? I don't know what he did, but I didn't end up adding. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Bar Ben Yumi, Amar Rabbi Nachman, V'hu sheyesh taina beinayu of shtei kesef. Even this type of shvua of shuf ben arisin, you don't let him swear on any minimal amount. It's only if there's a minimum of shtei kesef. If you remember, by the shvuas and moed b'miktas, we had a machloikis. Does the claim have to be shtei kesef, and then your moed that you owe some, or do you have to deny shtei kesef, and I'm demanding shtei kesef and a pruta? So what Rav Nachman said was, that sounds like Shmuel, who holds only the claim had to be shtei kesef, but you could be made on a pruta. Didn't we say that we pass like Rav, who holds that the claim has to be shtei kesef and a pruta? You're right. The kfir has to be on a shtei kesef, but the claim has to be on at least 2 kesef and a pruta, even for shutfim. So if I'm choshid you as a shutf that you stole less than that, then they don't mashpi. It only mashpi you if there's more of a significant amount of money. We know there's something called gilgal shvua. If you become a chuyav shvua, I can say, once you're swearing to me this shvua, swear to me other shvuas. Well, what if the shvu that you owe me is not a shvu deraisa? It's not moed b'miktas. It's a shvu derabanan. Could I also say, once you're swearing the shvu derabanan to me, you also have to swear other shvus to me as well? Anything. Well, it's not derabanan or deraisa. You don't have to swear to me at all. In the case where you don't owe me any shvu at all, if you owe me another shvu, I make you swear this. So the shvu that I'm being megalgal is there's no chiv at all for you to swear. There's a chiv at all for you to swear. I don't need gilgal. I can make you swear that directly. Obviously, I want you to make a shvua for me, but I have no legal claim to demand a shvua. But since I have a legal claim to demand some other shvua, I could ask you at the same time to swear these things as well. What do you mean megalgal deraisa? If there's a deraisa, I don't need gilgal. The deraisa itself makes you swear. The whole point is I don't have any claim to make you swear. So ma'ala galgal b'derabanan. Could you use as the anchor point, as the initiating shvua? Can you use a shvua derabanan? Tashma. Look at this case. Lova heimenu erev shvius. There was a halva that was done right before Shemitah. Ulamatzai shvius, and so there was a lova heimenu erev shvius, and there's the moed b'miktas. So there's a shvu deraisa for this halva, right? Ulamatzai shvius and motzai shvius nasaloi shutef oy oris. And motzai shvius he became a shutef or an oris. So now there's the shvua of an oris or a shutef that broke up. The halach is ein megalgal. Now we know that the loan became batal, the loan of the halva, right? So therefore, even though there's a new shvua that came upon him because he broke up with his shutfis or his arisus, you cannot be megalgal and make him swear the shvuas moed b'miktas. Why? Because the same shemitah that says you don't have to pay back your loans it eliminates any liability due to the loan. So yes, you had a liability of a Shavuos Maida B'Miktsas, but the Shemitah knocked that out as well. So there is nothing here even to swear, and even through Gilgal. So it's uncanny that the Mishnah B'Davka picked the case where Shemitah wiped out the loan first. It's mashma if there was no Shemitah in between them, there would be a Gilgal Shvuah. So time of the Lova Himenu Erev Shvius, the Asi Shvius Afkate. So there is no more Chayv to swear on. Hashar Shnei Shavua Magalglin. What if you borrowed money from me and you're Kaifer HaKoil, and it's before the days of Shavuos Hesses, so you owe me 0 zilch. Then we broke up from a shutfis, and I could demand a shvu of you, which is only a shvu d'Rabbanan. It's mashma that I could force you to swear on that loan as well. So you see clearly the anchor shavua was a shvu d'Rabbanan, and we still could force other shvuos upon you. So you have a raya that the Rabbanan could lead to Gilgal. So no, you're making the wrong diak. Loi tema hoshar shnei shavu megalglin. The diak you should make is if you flipped it around. If the shutfis was before Shemitah and the halva was after Shemitah, there you have a gal. There it's megalgalin. Why? Because the shutfis is not something that will become bottle throughout the Shemitah. It's only a loan. Frank Gemara, that's not the diak of Chiddush halacha that I'm making from the Reisha, because this case is mufurish in the Brisa. Habehedju katanila nasal shutav of erev shvius ulomotzai shvius lovim in the megalglin. So that means the original diak we made, that is, if on a regular year there was a chiyuv shvua d'Rabbanan of a risus or a pshutvis, and there was a coil of money, the shvua of a risus and shutvis, which is only the Rabbanon, will allow you to make to demand a gilgal shvua about the loan. So you see from here unequivocally that if someone owes me a shvu d'Rabbanan, I could also demand of him any other shvua that I want him to swear. Amar Afuna, to wrap this whole thing up and to wrap up the parak, onto Memtes Amar Aleph, l'choil megalgalin chutz mischir. Any type of shvua, even a shvu d'Rabbanan, will allow you to demand a gilgal shvua, except the shvua that an employer can demand of his employee. Remember, we said that if I claim I paid and the employee claimed he wasn't paid, we let the employee swear and collect. What was the reason for that? The reason for that was, first of all, the reason why I have to pay is because we say I'm not clear. An employer is too busy. So the employee remembers better. So the Gemara asks, if the employee remembers better, let him take without a shvua. Why does he have to swear? So the Gemara says he swears lahafes daita shabalabais. I'm outraged. I know I didn't pay you. I'm claiming I didn't. I know I paid you. I claim I paid you, and you're going to get to collect from me without anything. The shvu is just to calm me down. So it's not a real shvu to clarify any information. The reason why we believe you is because the employer is unclear. The shvu is just to calm me down. That shvu will not create a gilgal shvu. Shema Galglin, there you don't make gilgal shvu. Reb Chisda actually expressed exact same halacha, but in a different twist. He said, "L'chol ein makilin." You're never makel not to demand the gilgal shvua. Chutz mischir de makilin. By a schir or makel, and even though there's a shvua made by the schir, nevertheless it won't lead to a gilgal shvua. My beinayu, Reb Chisda used the word ein makilin, and they use the word l'chol megalglin. What's the difference? How this is expressed? The difference is as follows. Let's say I want someone to swear for me, and I'm looking for an opportunity for a gilgal shvua, and now he becomes mechuyev to me another shvua. So the question is, do they? Let's say I don't think of a gilgal shvua. If I think to demand the gilgal shvua, everybody else can get a gilgal shvua out of him. What if I don't think of it? Well, Bezin remind me, hey, you know you wanted him to swear about something else. Why don't you ask him for a gilgal shvua? So the difference is how you approach it. According to Reb Chisda, you let him make a gilgal shvua, but you would never. Bezin wouldn't tell them to demand it. But according to the first shita of the Chol Megalglin, their Bezin will tell the guy, you know what, if he owes you a shvua, now's a good time to ask for a gilgal. Will Bezin prompt it? Okay, v'ashvius mishametes, we said that shvius is mishametes, a shvua. We know in the mili, how do you know? Amar Gidl Amarav, Damakrav, v'zed dvar hashmita, dvar hashmita. Afilu diba mishametes. Not only will shmita wipe out a chayiv, if there's a chayiv for a shvuas moed b'miktsas that was lingering throughout Shemitah, Shemitah wipes out that chiyuv to make as well. Baruch Hashem, we were zoicha to finish the 7th parak. Now we're coming in for the final stretch tomorrow. We're learning a whole parak tomorrow. I don't know. So b'lineder hadon lachal l'shpoin, b'lineder hadon lachal l'shpoin, b'lineder hadon lachal l'shpoin. I could say that in the last 3 days we haven't had such a short parak, but past 3 days I'm